Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to do is show you how to graph this system of linear inequalities. And you can see here we have x is greater than -1 as well as x is less than 3. Now when graphing a linear inequality where we don't have like slope-intercept form, there's no x and y's, the easiest thing I'd say to create these would be using a table. And what we're going to do now is kind of forget about the inequalities and let's just graph x is equal to -1 and x is equal to 3. And we'll get to the inequality part here in just a second. So if I was going to graph these, the simplest way to kind of understand how to graph these is by using a table of values for x and y, as we have a coordinate axis, an x-axis, and a y-axis. Now, when using the table of values, all right, usually what we did is when we were first learning to graph, we chose values for x, plugged them in for x, and then determined the values for y. In this case equation, we see that x is equal to -1. So no matter what value we want to choose for y, x is always going to be equal to -1. And in this case, x is always going to be equal to 3. So I'm just going to write in those values in for x. Now, just like we chose arbitrary values for x, now we can just choose arbitrary values in for y. Let's do, -2, 0, 2, 4. Let's do -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. It doesn't really matter what values you choose in for y because as you see graph this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph these as coordinate points so you can see what the line looks like because we do need to make sure we include the inequality. So therefore, at x is always equal to -1. So here's my x-axis. So at x equals -1 right here. And then I say y is equal to -2, 1, 2. So that's 1 point. At -1, y is 0 right here. At -1, y is 2. That'll be the point there. And at -1, y is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see these dots, even though it doesn't really look that nice, are created in a vertical line. Now, before I get to the next one, I notice that this is an inequality symbol that's greater than, not greater than equal to. Therefore, I know that this is going to create a dashed line, meaning this line is not going to be a part of our solution. Now, to go ahead and graph the x equals 3, I look at this table of values. It's going to be the same as this one, but instead of x equals -1, let's kind of straighten this out a little bit. What you can see now is x equals 3. So I go over to 3, 1, 2, 3. And then again, I'm going to create another vertical line at that point. Instead of plotting the points, you can kind of see it's a vertical line. Now, the next thing is we need to test. Where are we going to be shading for these? So to do that, what we need to do is choose a test point. We want to choose a test point that is not on either of our inequality symbols. And the best test point to choose is 0, 0. So now we know that 0, 0 is a coordinate point x and y. But we see for these two equations, we don't have a y to plug in. So we're just going to plug in our x. So I'll plug 0 in for x. 0 is greater than -1. And then I plug 0 in for 3. 0 is, or for x here, and 0 is less than 3. Now in this case, we see that 0 is less than -1, which is true. So for this boundary line, that is true. That means we're going to shade to the right. Now, I always like to do arrows when doing inequalities because if I just start shading, a lot of times we're looking at where they're intersecting. So we want to make sure that we write the arrows before we actually get to the shading. In this case, 0 is less than 3. That's true for this one, for this boundary line. So therefore, I'm going to shade to the left. Therefore, the only area or region where both of our inequalities are true are going to be between these two boundary lines. So that is going to be the area that I am going to shade. And that means any point that's within that boundary line, if you plug that value in for x, it's going to make both of those inequalities true. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you graph a system of linear inequalities. Thanks.